Hey everyone, Ninja Art here, and today we're going to look at a tutorial on how to use a pencil sketch as a base for digital painting. And we're going to be using Ryuk here as an example, and you might notice right away that my phone camera is not the best, and that's okay. I'm going to show you how to get over that and how to bring out some details that you might, have made in your sketch but are not appearing in the photograph. Now, I am going to be using Photoshop for this. I'm using Photoshop CS6. I will try to make this tutorial as universal as possible. I'm pretty sure you can do the sort of thing that I'm going to do in any software or any picture editing software. But either way, I'm going to do a couple of ways to do the same thing so that, it is as universal as possible. To start off, drop your picture here, whatever it is, and I'm going to scale it to the size of my canvas. In Photoshop, you press Ctrl-T, as in transform, and then I'm going to want to press Shift to lock down this aspect ratio to not get, this sort of deal. I will press Shift and drag out, and let me get this to the size that I want, and I want this to be about here we go. Okay. So how do we begin? Well, we start off by going to Image, Adjustments, and you can use any of these for, really, brightness and contrast levels, curves, and exposure. For more advanced people, I would recommend using curves, because you get a little bit more control, but levels is fine. I'm going to use levels for this. And as you can see, we get this little panel. If you're new to Photoshop, well, this thing is a levels thing. And the first thing that I want to do is make the darks darker, right? This is the blacks, this is the whites, and this is the grays. So we're going to make the blacks a lot darker. We're also going to make the whites a lot brighter, so they pop a bit more. And these grays, I'm going to make them a bit darker. Yeah, so that you see we can get a lot of these details that I mentioned before that were not appearing in the photograph, but I did draw them, and I have the sketch right next to me, and I know they're here, right? So this is looking a bit better. You could also do more than one adjustments. You could go to brightness and contrast. I like to use Legacy, by the way. You could maybe amp the contrast. This is way too much, of course, but maybe something like this. Perfect. Right. So now we have a nice little value base, right? No, don't worry, it's not the full tutorial, but now we have a little value base here that we can use to sort of, paint over. You could paint, the background right now. You could really just go ahead and start, color picking here maybe, and just like adding certain colors that you want, or whatever it is. You could do that, but I'm going to show you the way I do it. And the way I do it is I like to start off with some color. Right, so now we have this, which is plain values. You might find some blues here, but that's because of the contrast thing. But I'm going to use a gradient map, right? So what a gradient map is, as you can see here in the gradients, I have my presets set to here, the photographic toning, right? You load these up, and these happen to be here. And you can make your own gradients, by the way. That doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go with... You can see in the video that I really tried a bunch of these, right? So you can really just go with, whatever sort of you fancy. I think I went with this one in the end, but let's go with a different one today. Let's go with this one. Cool. So now we have these values here, and you can see that, it's a bit more interesting already if you paint over this. If you're painting over something that's already has some color to it, you can get some cool color shifts. You can edit this, by the way, by going here. You pick one of these and you change the color, right? Make it darker, brighter, or whatever. I'm going to leave it as it is because I like this gradient a lot. And yeah, then what you're going to want to do is get to the color layer, make a new color layer right here on top of everything. Delete this layer, is doing nothing. And now, here's the thing with a color layer. You need to get a little bit of color theory before you try to apply it. You know, let's say you want to do like a red in the eyes and you pick this red. You see, well, right now it is coming through, right? But it's weird. It's the same red. You see how it doesn't show up in different areas? It's like different. If you go over here, it's like a pink almost. So you have to know a little bit of color theory, right? To paint these in. Now, what I would suggest would be to, alright, grab your logo color. Let's say you grab some skin color. Because Ryuk is completely pale, right? He has white skin, but I still want to sort of, I want to make it look like he has dead skin, if you will, right? Because it is. It's like kind of like a face that he put over himself, like that stitched over his body, which is a really cool design. That, well, at least I really like. So I'm going to press harder on some of these areas, right? Like the ears and the nose, maybe. You want to press harder. Not so hard, that was for demonstration, but let a bit of that color shine through. And then the rest of the face, you might want to sort of, press a little bit lighter to have that gradient sort of show through. And let's say that in some areas, let's say over here, right? Let's say you overdo it. Some in this area is like this, the shadows, and this looks too human, maybe right now. It's just not the color you're looking for. At least you can get your eraser and you can dial it back, sort of let that blue sort of look like a lighter shadow, like a colder shadow. I mean, sort of show through. You can pick within this to get some colors, some blues in the gradient, right? So you can play with these colors a lot. And let's say you want to make Ryuk illuminated by some sunlight, right? So sunlight is good. It's very, very bright. So you might, alright, let's just make a new layer, set it to overlay, set it to, color dodge or whatever. Here's the thing. Right now, you're about ready, let's say, to paint. Let me actually fill in some color so we're ready to paint, to squash this down to a new layer. So let's say I get some right on the eyes. I did this effect in the mouth that I really enjoyed. Let's say we get this, right? And say that we want, say that we're happy with this, right? Let's say we're happy with it. And we're ready to move on to the next stage, would be, to squash everything down. Now, when you have your colors down, what I like to do is I like to press Ctrl, Alt, Shift, and E. What this will do is it'll create a new layer and squash everything before it and create it into this new layer, just this flattened thing. Now, right now, I would like to press O. Now, O is this tool right here, which is the Dodge tool. We're going to be using the Dodge tool and the Burn tool. The Dodge tool is like that's my cat. The Dodge tool, is for highlights, as you can see. And now, we squash this layer. The way the Dodge tool works is that it works only on the current layer, right? So let's say we go back, right? We go over here. If I do Dodge, it's not going to affect, it's only going to affect the colors that I lay down here in this color layer. You see right here, this blue weird shit that's happening. That's not what we want, right? So wait, let me go to history. Alright, so we did a lot of Dodge shit. Anyway, so let's go down to our other layer, right? So we want to brighten up some of these highlights, right? So we're brightening these up. It might go to this white by default, which is fine. You can press here, protect tones. You can do that. I don't really care for the sake of this tutorial. See, we're brightening things up, and we're making sort of adding some values to things, and we're making things a bit more interesting. We're already in the sort of a digital painting stage, right? So as we said, we're going to use this Burn tool to add some shadows. So light's coming from over here. this is going to be a whole of a lot darker. So the way I'm doing this is simply just, burning where you want some shadow and dodging where you want some highlights. And this is all. As you can see, we're still working on the photograph. We still haven't done any painting. We're just doing some correction to the values to sort of start off with a nice little base, right, to our painting. And doing some little details and forms and things. So when you get to about here, what you can do really is you can begin to sort of paint a bit. You can sort of begin to, sort of correct some forms. You're already pretty much in the painting stage. You could already, just kind of maybe select like an area or something and say around here, and select this hair and this area, the kind of back thing. Let's say we could already begin to paint this like this dark background sort of thing, sort of a color, right? And you could already just get into it. This process is really quick, as you can see, right? We're already really far ahead into this painting. Like, we already have our values set, we have our forms constructed, because we did that all in a sketch phase in the notebook. Now, I was at a friend's house when I drew this, right? So I don't know. It could be better, it could be worse. Yes. But why I decided to do this, what I thought would be a good idea, is because I don't know if it's just me, but I get this sort of I get a lot of more dynamic range and a lot more like smooth motions with my pencil than with my stylus. I think it's because I'm more accustomed to drawing traditionally. I've drawn traditionally way more than I've drawn digitally. Even though I am a digital artist and I have drawn thousands of the things digitally and done things, there's just like an innate thing about holding a pencil and looking directly at what you're doing. That's like irreplaceable for me. So I like to take advantage of that sometimes. Not that there's anything wrong with painting digitally 100%. It's just my sort of process. So yeah, you can see this is, you could go on right now to, render and call it a day, right? But how will we do that? Now, I like to pick, you see this color variation that's happening? You have these grays here, you have this sort of more skin color, yellowish blues, that mix really well with these reds. These reds really have a lot of contrast because they're really different from the rest of the color palette. But something crucial before you start rendering, before you get rid of this sort of base area that we're doing here, the sort of base what do you call this? Base status, base form, whatever. A neat little trick that everybody uses is you create a new layer. You fill it with Shift F5, by the way. Well, that's my hotkey, at least. You fill it with black, right? And then you set it to color. What this does is it allows you to check your values. And now, I like to get this really tiny, or look at the navigator and check, hey, am I liking this? Is this a good sort of place to be? And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, yes, I like this. Cool. So, turn this off, go back to this layer. You can paint on one layer. It's really up to you. I like to paint on a layer on top of it so that I can check my progress. But, we just color pick and then we start rendering. Right? And this is the painting. You're already at the painting stage by this point, right? You're already just painting your forms in. What you're going to want to do at this stage is try to get rid of this sort of pencil, these pencil lines pretty much. You might, sometimes some people like to use a soft brush for this. I have this brush that's pretty soft and has a texture to it. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe if I use this white. You can see this texture that's applying to it. It's better. You can see it way better in the navigator. Whoops. And yeah, so let's pick a shadow color. Let's go down to it. You don't have to remove all of the pencil. It's up to you. It's up to you if you want to keep the texture or not. I thought it was a little bit too gritty at some areas, and I wanted to have a more sort of a finished piece look rather than a sketchy look. So that's why I'm removing most of it, right? And well, I'm not going to paint this whole thing today. You can check out the other video of the time lapse of me doing this. And but yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a nice sort of way to get started in a painting. And I really suggest you try different processes and see which one you like the most. What how things come out with different styles of painting and going about things. For instance, I don't always do this sort of thing you're seeing here. I like to sort of experiment and try new things and study while I paint. That's a great tip that I might give you. And yeah, so let's say you're doing a lot of these changes, right? You're doing some color, and you're doing these things, you're trying to remove these things. Try to look at all these shapes you see that are happening here. By shapes, I mean this sort of things, right? These sort of things that I made on purpose. I can make a video on that if you'd like that. Shape design, these things, but try to kind of, sort of stay in tune with that. Try not to lose what makes the sketch great in a way, right? You're gonna want to keep the certain things that you make with pencil because they're interesting. They make the drawing pop a bit. And yeah, I mean, this is about it. As you can see, as you can see in the video, like I really just elaborate on the shapes that are here. And you render, you start to get, the more you paint over this thing, the more you can see the pencil lines go away. Let me do like a quick little, you see, full pencil, a little bit of painting. You can see it a bit more clearly again on the navigator. And yeah, and that's how you sort of, and then you add detail on top of detail on top of detail. And it's not really that difficult, but I'm going to show you a separate way without using gradient maps. So we go back to this, right? Let's delete this thing. So we go back to this, right? This edited thing. Now we're going to go straight to a color layer, right? I'm pretty sure you can use an overlay layer for this. Basically, you need something that's transparent and that's going to use, that you're going to be able to color, change the color of this without changing the values. Now, let's say, here's the thing. Now we have this cool blue thing, but let me kind of apply this, right? You see this is full black and white. We have some blues here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to merge this down, this color layer down, so we have a full black and white, pure black and white values thing. And if you want to apply some colors to this, how do we do this, right? How do we make this interesting? So, as you can see in the anime, Ryuk's shadows, in a lot of anime, right? It's done with this sort of blue thing. If you look at Sasuke's hair, stuff like that, it looks blue because you can't shade black on black. So, we pick a blue. This is way too harsh, of course, but let's say a desaturated dark blue. And I like to use this soft brush. You can use any brush, but we start applying it over, and we were checking. We see, all right, this is right enough blue. We only have blue right now, so it's going to be, of course, really, really obvious. We want to add it to some shadows. Right, to some the parts of the face that are going to be in shadow, or the parts of the painting that are going to be in shadow, we're going to want to, and I have been doing this in a motherfucking the same layer. Holy shit. And let's say you have another software, you don't know how to use gradient maps, you're scared of that, whatever, you want to study color, whatever your reason is. Create a new layer on top of your black and white, set it to color, and then, make this thing interesting. Sort of paint those colors in. Now I'm going to use a desaturated dark blue for this, and I'm going to paint this over the areas that I want some shadow to be in. Let's say this whole area, because the light's coming from this side, remember? And yeah, this might be too much. You might go into some areas and be like, alright, this is way too saturated, right? Let's pick this black again, dial it back. See, we dial it back. You can pick from that color. Let's say we want those sort of orangish yellow lights, right, that we had from over here. We add them in. This is painting yellow over black. Looks disgusting, so let me paint over this. This is, of course, the wrong yellow, but sort of this is for demonstration purposes, right? Let me actually pick the right color. You can erase, by the way, to knock back. Let's say you want a sort of afternoon Ryuk. And by the way, if your colors are not going right, I will show you a little trick. Go to set it under the color layer and go to levels again and see, right? Alright, so this yellow is not the yellow that I want. So let me brighten these whites up and darkening these things down. Alright, this is more of a yellow that I want. Alright, perfect. See? A bit more contrast. Sometimes when you use this method, you're going to have to change a little bit of the levels again, and that's fine. Just, you know, have your values in a way. You can use that dodge trick later. This, let's say I want this red, the eyes. And yeah, you can see, and you start painting, and you get to this. You can get to the same thing. Just the gradient map is a lot faster and more efficient, and a little bit more dynamic, and it's easier to find colors in that, I find. But yeah, you can use, as you can see, you can use any sort of you can use anything for it, really. And then you can start sort of, I would select this thing like this. Give it a minute, and just a quick selection of the character. That's all his hairs and shit, but you know, it's just sort of for like a demo purpose, and I did not select the whole thing. Alright, there we go. Now, I want to say Shift 5, use foreground color, put it with black. You can change this with Control U, by the way, and colorize this. I'm gonna go for a dark blue. Oh, this purple looks fine. Darker. There we go. And then you know, you do your thing. You can. I added some smoke. I think on my other video. On the final image. I mean, you see we're already painting on top of this. I mean, you can get to the same result really. It's all a matter of just, you know, changing your values, changing your sort of your contrast for it to match a bit. And then you can use all sorts of layers. You can use, what we can do right now is we can flatten this as we did before, and you start using that the burn tool, right? Let's burn some of this shadows to correct this these values, this lighting a bit. It's looking pretty cool. Not gonna lie. Let's use the dodge tool. Using the eyes to make them pop a bit. Anything you want to be a lot brighter or pop, you can use this too. Then we can pick from it, right? This is obviously way too bright and weird, but you kind of get my point. I hope this is coming across well. But yeah, this is pretty much how I would do it. Right now, I would sort of change to a more bristle looking type of brush. Right? Let me show you this type of brush. Right, to get a more concise and sharper edge. I remember I redid, sorry, all these little stitches in the final painting. But yeah, this is all about using a base, a traditional base, as a sort of, base for digital painting. Hope this tutorial was useful. Hope you got something out of it. And yeah, peace.